Hi there, my name is Andrew Park and I'll be one of your mentors during your course. So a bit about me is I started my career in the vocational sector back in the late 90s after many years in the joinery trade and also a stint running an internet cafe back when it was a new thing. I've worked across the not-for-profit sector, TAE New South Wales, predominantly in the private RTO space, and for a very extended period of time owned and operated my own RTO, literally starting from scratch myself, that over a 12-year period built up to well over 1,000 trainees, apprentices, students, and loved that journey all the way. My passion has always been creating apprenticeships and traineeship pathways in the blue-collar space, leveraging off government infrastructure spends across roads, rails and health infrastructure. It's a great space if you can talk underwater and you know that space, and critically can deliver a great product. So during my time in the sector, in relation to PD terms, I've done the full Cert IV in TAE a couple of times when it's changed and you had to redo the course, skill sets upgrades when they change new language and literacy components. I've done diplomas in business, advanced diplomas in IT and e-learning development, skill sets in blue collar. My point about that is PD is critical in our sector. It's not just about our learners having their own skill sets, it's about our trainers knowing their subject matter, having professional development and having the currency. So it's something you'll pretty much be required and need to get used to. So I guess just quickly is probably two pieces of advice that I have first up for you about kicking your journey along in the RTO space is nothing verbal counts. When it comes to quality training, it's about what we do now as practitioners that helps the RTO teams get through the audits. And that could be years after we've left the sector as trainers and professionals. It could be we still might be with the organisation, we've left on great terms, we've left on bad terms, but it's about your reputation. Okay, so it's critical, follow the bouncy ball policies, procedures within that organisation. You might see a variance between the different RTOs you work in, that's fine. Understand their processes, but again, nothing verbal counts. Good paperwork, good processes, handed in on time, and great communications, because that'll be about your reputation just as much as good delivery of training. So record keeping is critical. The compliance teams will want you to follow those bouncy balls, follow those policy and procedures, and quite simply, again, I reaffirm, nothing is verbal. Like even if you're sitting in an audit in 4 years, telling a story won't count. You have to have it documented at the time. I hope that sticks with you. So secondly, if you haven't already sort of taste tested the sector and what you're talking about, there's so many dynamic parts to the vocational marketplace. It's vast, it's extensive in scope, it's extensive in funding, state by state, fee for service, federal funding, programs change constantly, funded changes, political influences change, but we still deliver units of competency, so there's one sticking point. And then to back that is also about, what are you passionate about? Going to work and enjoying it, really critical part of what we do, because we have to empower and share our knowledge. From a training perspective, if you're there doing the stand-up comedy, you need to know what you're talking about. You need to be able to fill gaps. You need to be able to adapt if something breaks, keeping your users busy while something's fixed. Be a professional. So I guess for me, it's about, finding an area you're passionate about. For me, it was always about that blue collar space, filling gaps, the disengaged youth, the disadvantaged, and creating opportunities. I love that space. I still love that space, and it was an area that I enjoyed talking about and could quite easily pitch and sell that into the sector. So it's something that you could really look at, like, do you like to travel? Can you leave home for a few days or a few weeks? Because in addition to the backbone of the sector that has those fixed traditional classroom programs that are really, really critical, there's always those dynamic needs of sending trainers into remote locations, you know, hitting the road, visiting apprentices and trainees. And again, the paper trail stuff becomes really, really critical, be it digital or paper-based, you know. So my point of that is it's not a cookie cutter process in this sector. There are so many dynamic opportunities that come with the financial reward, you know, and check it out, explore that, because it'll be a great component for you as part of your training journey anyway. So I guess they're those two things that I'll kick off with. Look, I look forward to bringing more information. I hope it's helpful, having a chat, and probably along with having some of these chats short and sharp with some of my industry networks and colleagues. But keep studying and get committed.